The Bulletin continues with Larry Kane.
I don't have to tell you that there's a constant, ongoing battle in this country over the limits of art. Art, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. And it's interesting that through the ages, Americans have personally rejected all attempts by critics, politicians, and self-imposed censors to tell them what they should see, hear, and read. Here in Philadelphia, a talented young photographer is making his mark and raising a lot of eyebrows in the process. Fortunately, what's considered socially and politically correct has had no impact on his work, none whatsoever. That's good, that's healthy. And it's a tribute to this town that Tony Ward works with controversy, but without restraint. So here it is. You're about to get a vision of photography like you've never seen it before. Tony Ward. You'll definitely have some opinion about his work, no question.
Great, hold it.
Tony Ward knows how to strike a pose.
Phoenix's back could be your backrest.
He's a Philadelphia photographer who is clear on just what he wants from his models and is willing to show them.
And she's, you know, coffee cups here, little more casual.
Or tell them.
Maria, I just need that chin right on his shoulder, Doc. I like that glance over like that with the eyes. Lean in toward her more. Lean in.
And when it clicks, the models know it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful. I want people to leave my sessions and working with me and say, hey, that was one of the best days of my life. Excellent.
When he's working, he says he's in heaven.
What drives me is the experience of creating with people who I genuinely have an interest in. That's what drives me.
What also drives him is the thrill of creating something that's different. Tony Ward photos are daring and provocative. The work of this Philadelphia photographer is creating a buzz in fashion and photography circles around the world. In just the past year alone, his work has appeared in the German magazine Max. He's had gallery exhibits in Philadelphia and Los Angeles. He's shot the fashion layout for the upcoming April issue of Vibe magazine. And he's photographed the fashion section of the current issue of Philadelphia magazine. When he got the Philly magazine assignment, the idea was to showcase shoes and hats. And that's exactly what he focused on. Shoes and hats. The models wore nothing else. So, Tony, how did the idea of shooting a naked woman wearing only hat and shoes come about?
Well, I was at the offices of Philadelphia Magazine. They saw a picture like that in my portfolio, and they thought it would make a great series for the magazine.
His style is just so unusual, especially for this kind of town, for this kind of magazine. It's just graphically stunning, provocative, evocative, and I knew I wanted him right away.
Elliot Kaplan is the editor of Philadelphia Magazine. He was willing to take a walk on the wild side with Tony, which prompted readers to call the publication with both praise and complaints.
Some just thought it was inappropriate, some objected to the nudity, I think some objected to the interracial aspects of it.
Elliot Kaplan, the editor, makes no apologies, and neither does Tony Ward.
So the art world has very often given us insight into human form, from Michelangelo to Playboy today. So I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, it's been around for a very long time. It's going to continue to exist. And the human body is a marvel, both internally and externally.
Yeah, and angle your head so that...
Beyond artistic value, Tony believes that fashion pages can be used to make social statements. His own life experiences often shape his work.
Growing up on Martin Luther King's speeches, which I think were some of the most powerful speeches made in the 60s that affected my life dramatically, all these years later, I still see a divided culture, a divisive culture in many ways. So I think it's inherent in me to bring people together, whether it be through a racial thing or a religious thing or a political thing. I want to use these, what I see, dichotomies in culture and somehow bring them together in my picture process. So this was an opportunity to do that.
The Philadelphia Magazine shoot was Tony's first opportunity to do a full fashion layout for a major publication. But he isn't new to photography, and that's what makes his story even more interesting. He spent the early part of his career shooting industrial-type pictures right here in Philadelphia for a pharmaceutical company called SmithKline Beecham. So did you get fancy with like lighting and different things to be creative with these
Yeah,
beakers?
I was known for doing very colorful corporate work.
But no matter how successful he was at making the corporate stuff look interesting, Tony's heart all along was really in fashion.
I've always loved fashion, even as a young, junior high student. I would go to school and, I'd go down to like Crass Brothers and try to get the most sensational fashion of the time. And we would coin phrases for the type of shoes we'd wear and the shirts we'd wear. I had an amazing upbringing. I had a very loving family, a close-knit family. It just seemed to be like a paradise from one day to the next.
Tony grew up in Elkins Park, a suburb of Philadelphia. He's one of 3 children. He went to Abington High. His early exposure to art came from his father, who's an artist.
From my earliest remembrances, there was always an exposure to expressing oneself in the arts. And I remember, as maybe I was a 4 or 5-year-old boy, Dad would start to teach me how to draw, and I couldn't draw.
Tony graduated from Millersville University, where he majored in art education and dabbled in photography. Eventually, he fell in love with picture taking and made it his focus. He went on to graduate school in Rochester, New York, getting a master's of fine arts in photography, then on to SmithKline. Tony's girlfriend at the time, who would later become his wife, joked that he was a Brooks Brothers photographer.
And she said, "What are you doing here at this boring place wearing these boring clothes?" So she was really inspired me to move forward, and she said, "Hey, listen, why don't you do your own thing?" So in '84, I gave my resignation and started my own business.
What also excited Tony about that same woman was her involvement in fashion. Back in the 70s, Sandy was a sought-after model who appeared in countless magazines.
I'm aiming up pretty high. Yeah, I'm about...
She knows fashion well and today works closely with her husband. There's a certain amount of synergy between them.
She knows that I give her a certain amount of freedom to interject her energy and her viewpoints on the shoot.
Just as they work together, they savor the special moments together, like when we showed them the finished products of the Philly magazine shoot for the very first time. The Bulletin got them before they did.
Oh, wow.
That looks fabulous. I love the way they placed that.
If the Philly magazine shoot gave him a jump start on the road to big-time fashion photography, it's his work in the April issue of the music magazine Vibe that's likely to get him national and international notice.
Oh, excellent. Everyone looks at Vibe for cutting-edge ideas, social commentary, picture layout, style, you name it. Vibe is one of the forerunners of avant-garde magazine culture.
Vibe's art director, Ditto Ram, knew he wanted to work with Tony after seeing his pictures.
His book was had these kind of things that we sometimes have to avoid, in particularly the things about sexual relationships.
Tony's portfolio also passed through the hands of Kevin Stewart, the magazine's fashion director.
The thing about Tony's work is he has a provocative nature about him, but he does it in a very elegant way, a very worldly, like a global way. He plays with juxtaposition. Things that you wouldn't expect to be there are there, so it adds more to the viewer to look at.
It was important to Tony that this Vibe shoot was a local production. It took place in Chestnut Hill. The magazine staff came from New York to Philadelphia using local models. Once again, it was an opportunity for Tony to test his theory on fashion as commentary. So what's the storyline of the layout and Vibe?
That was a result of me studying the pages of Vibe probably from its inception, and I never really saw blacks depicted in a regal type setting. I saw a lot of hip-hop, street, urban settings, clubs, and so forth. But I thought, wouldn't it be refreshing to show another aspect of African-American life?
Contrasts that might surprise us, also help us to see and appreciate the world in new ways.
I'm a heterosexual man, but I can appreciate and admire homosexual love You know, I don't have to partake in it to understand it and appreciate it. Just like being a white person, you can still appreciate a black person, or a black person can still appreciate a white. That's all part of trying to bring a lot of mass consciousness, if you will, together. And I think that's what makes my pictures more exciting and more invigorating for me personally.
So now when you think of Tony Ward and his work, you might be thinking erotic or surprising. But think again. Take a look at these pictures taken at a Philadelphia church. And what about these pictures at a New York nightclub with people totally clothed?
What do you consider yourself if you're not a fashion photographer?
I really haven't come up with the term that I think is right. I'm still developing this approach, and I can't really label it. But if you were to say you're a fashion photographer, I would say, okay, if you think so. I don't really look at myself that way. I don't want to just document clothes.
It may be easier to simply call him a man on the edge, and that edge may bring this Philadelphian international recognition.
Oh, that was great. Terrific. I think we've got it. Let's break.
You got this thing.
Oh, man, that was great.
Well, we might be witnessing the evolution of a world star here. Tony's photos for SmithKline Beecham were really exciting. And the Philadelphia Magazine and Vibe shoots, well, there's one thing we know. He makes you think, and he certainly gets your attention, and you can't deny the fact that for whatever reason, he makes you look at his photos. And now his work will go on exhibit in a Tokyo gallery, and the editors of top magazines everywhere are looking at his portfolio. The people we spoke to say they like working with him because he's also a nice person. One of the things that seems to be true about the talent in the Philadelphia area, for so many people, you can stay right here and you can have your dreams come true.